October 4, 1952. 7th Avenue, Harlem. 13 men pushed Bumpy Johnson off a four-story building 48 feet high, sure he would not survive. He did. This was not revenge or hurt pride. It was a cold plan about power and land. One fall changed Harlem's rules. So how did a man who hit the ground and lived make the whole city quiet? To understand that night, we must go back to where it really started. October 4, 1952. The rooftop of the building on 97th Avenue sits 48 feet above West 134th Street. The concrete down below waits like a killer who never misses. The sky is clear and cold. The moon is almost full. The wind cuts across the tar paper and gravel so sharply that just standing still makes your bones hurt. There are no clouds, no rain, nothing to make the fall softer. Bumpy Johnson stands in the middle of that rooftop with empty hands and a face that shows nothing. No gun, no knife, no one to help him. 13 white men stand in a half circle around him. They block every way out, every direction, every chance except the one they planned. Their shadows stretch long across the roof like fingers reaching for his neck. These men are not new to this work. The West Side Boys did not climb 4 flights of stairs just for a walk. They came ready. They brought lead pipes wrapped in tape so their hands would not hurt when they swung. They brought baseball bats that had already broken ribs and knees from Hell's Kitchen to the Hudson River docks. They brought chains that leave marks a doctor has to explain in reports no one reads. Patrick Malone stands right across from Bumpy. He is 6 feet of muscle built from loading ships and beating people. Everyone calls him Red because his hair looks like rusty copper wire. He is 34 years old with hands like hammers and a scar above his left eye from a dock fight. A broken bottle opened his face once, but he kept swinging until 3 men could not stand. Red built the West Side Boys by teaching simple lessons. If you do not pay protection money, your store burns while you sleep upstairs. If you talk to the police, your fingers get broken one at a time with a hammer. If you cross into their territory, you disappear into the Hudson River wearing concrete shoes that pull you down into cold water. Fish eat what is left until no one can tell who you were. 6 years of those lessons built an empire from 59th Street down through Chelsea, docks, trucks, warehouses, anywhere goods move or money changes hands. Mostly good Irish boys who learned violence in Boston slums before coming to New York. A few Italians mixed in, the ones too mean for the big Italian families, the ones who like breaking bones more than making deals. But Red wants more. He looks north to Harlem and sees 50,000 black people playing the numbers game. He sees money flowing like a river. He sees one man running it all instead of a big group. Kill that one man and Harlem falls apart. Simple math, one dead body equals full control. No talking, Red says. His voice has the flat sound of South Boston mixed with New York streets. No deal, no second chance. He steps forward 3 steps. You had your warning last month when we broke Tommy Delacqua's jaw with a tire iron. You sent your men to beat our dock workers. That was your mistake. Bumpy says nothing. His eyes move across the half circle, counting weapons, measuring distances, figuring chances that no smart person would take. Here is what happens next, Red goes on. My boys will work you over. Ribs first, we will hear them crack. Then fingers, we will bend them backward until joints pop and bone breaks through skin. Maybe your jaw if you try to scream. We want you awake for all of it. The pain is part of the lesson. The 12 other men shift their feet. Knuckles crack, chains rattle. One thick-shouldered man named Sullivan taps his baseball bat against his palm like a clock counting down. After we break you, we drag you to that edge. Red points to the low wall around the roof. 4 stories straight down. 48 feet to 7th Avenue where the pavement does not bend. We throw you off and let gravity finish the job. No bullet, no knife, just you, the fall, and the sound your skull makes hitting concrete. Red leans closer. Tomorrow morning, Harlem wakes up and finds their leader splattered across the street like a bug on a windshield, brain on the sidewalk, bone pieces in the gutter, the kind of mess that makes people throw up when they see it. That is the message. That is what happens when black gangsters think they can tell white men no. You brought 13 men to throw one man off a roof, Bumpy says quietly. 13 men to make sure you suffer first. 13 witnesses so everyone knows this was not an accident or suicide or bad luck. Red's fist closes tight. This is an execution, public, brutal, the kind Harlem will remember for 30 years. Behind them, somewhere down in Harlem, Marcus is probably in the barber shop on Lenox Avenue wondering why Bumpy has not come back yet. Marcus runs the numbers banks, keeps the runners in line, makes sure money gets collected on time. Without Marcus, Harlem stumbles. Without Bumpy, it falls completely. Red knows that. That is why this must be big and scary. That is why guns are too fast, too clean, too kind. Fear needs a show. Control needs cruelty that people whisper about. Power needs an example so bad that no one ever tries it again. Any last words? Red asks. The half circle closes tighter. Sullivan steps forward with the bat. Two others move in with swinging chains. A fourth man pulls out a switchblade, not to kill yet but to cut to open skin to make Bumpy bleed before the real hurting starts. Bumpy looks past Red to the edge of the roof, to the 48-foot drop, to the pavement waiting below like an altar for a sacrifice. His breathing stays calm even though 13 men are about to break every big bone in his body before throwing him off. Just one question, Bumpy says. What? Have you ever thrown someone off a roof and had them live? Red laughs. The sound cuts across the roof like breaking glass. The 12 others laugh too because they know the math. 48 feet, concrete below, human skull cracks like an eggshell, spine breaks, organs burst inside. No one survives that fall, no one walks away. The only question is if you die right away or spend 30 seconds choking on your own blood while people watch. No one lives through that drop, Red says. Physics does not care how tough you think you are. Good to know. Red nods to Sullivan. The bat rises, chains start swinging. The switchblade clicks open like a door shutting on any hope of kindness. 13 men move in for the kill. They are sure of their numbers, sure of their plan, sure that what happens next will change Harlem's rules forever. They are right about that last part. What happens next will change everything, just not the way Red Malone thinks. Because killing someone does not always need a gun or knife or chain around the neck until the fight stops. Sometimes it needs witnesses. Sometimes it needs to be public, memorable, cruel enough that the story spreads faster than facts. Sometimes it needs people to watch what happens when strong men make mistakes they cannot fix. Red Malone brought 13 men to this rooftop to teach Harlem a lesson about power, fear, and what happens when you say no. What he forgot is that some lessons go both ways. Some men are harder to kill than gravity. 48 feet of empty air can be a weapon or a rescue. It depends on who chooses the fall. 3 weeks before Red Malone pushed Bumpy Johnson toward that 48-foot drop, Harlem lived under the same careful peace it had kept since Dutch Schultz took 3 bullets in his stomach in 1935. The numbers game fed thousands of families. Every morning runners collected nickels and dimes from maids, porters, and factory workers who picked 3 numbers. Hopping 20 cents would turn into $3 by evening. The system worked because everyone knew the rules and no one broke them without paying a price. Duke Ellington's music poured from record players in basement bars where whiskey cost a quarter and asking the wrong question could cost your teeth. The smell of cheap wine mixed with cigarette smoke and sweat from bodies packed into rooms too small for the crowds. Men in expensive suits sat at corner tables counting cash while dancers moved to jazz that made the whole neighborhood feel alive. Order was there, thin as paper but strong as steel, because Bumpy Johnson kept it that way with careful control that kept violence quiet and money steady. Numbers banks ran on time, collections happened without trouble, fights got settled in back rooms where broken fingers taught lessons bullets could not. Harlem was not rich, but it was organized. Organization meant staying alive in a city built to crush anyone who looked different, talked different, or refused to bow. The trouble started at the line between Hell's Kitchen and Harlem on 59th Street, white land meeting black land, both sides acting like the line would stay forever. Tommy Delacqua ran numbers in Hell's Kitchen, collecting from Italian and Irish families who trusted him because his mother was from Naples and his father worked the docks 30 years until a crane crushed his back. September 12, 1952. 2 of Red Malone's men walked into Tommy's Numbers Bank on 10th Avenue and gave a message that left no room for argument. Tommy worked for the West Side Boys now. His collections went to Red. His runners answered to Red's leaders. His area belonged to Hell's Kitchen. If he did not like it, they would talk about it in the alley out back, talk that ended with tire irons and broken bones. Tommy listened because listening kept him alive. He nodded because nodding kept his teeth in his mouth. He waited until they left, then walked 15 blocks north to Harlem and told Bumpy Johnson the boarders had moved without asking. Bumpy sat in the back room of the barber shop on Lenox Avenue. His desk was covered with books that tracked every cent in Harlem's numbers banks. Marcus stood by the window watching the street where life went on like nothing was wrong. "What did you tell them?" Bumpy asked. "I said I would think about it." Tommy's hands shook while he lit his cigarette. "I said I needed time to think over their offer." It was not an offer, it was a threat. Bumpy closed the book. "Red Malone is testing the line. He wants to see if we fight back or give in." "What do we do?" "We send a message." Bumpy stood and walked to the window. Not a threat, not a war, just a reminder that borders work both ways. The message went out that afternoon. 3 of Bumpy's men visited Red's men at a bar on 48th Street. No guns, no fighting, just a calm talk about how land agreements need respect from both sides. Forcing people to change sides causes trouble. Smart men talk before they order. Red Malone got the message and saw it as weakness. Black gangsters sending words instead of fists meant they were afraid to fight. Bumpy Johnson talking respect and talking meant he was soft, more talker than fighter, the kind you can push until he breaks. September 18, 1952. Tommy Delacqua left his Numbers bank at closing and walked to his car 3 blocks away. He never got there. 4 men grabbed him in an alley where the streetlights had been broken the night before. They did not ask questions. They did not warn. They just started with the calm skill of men who had done this many times. A lead pipe across the backs of his knees dropped him to the ground. Kicks to his ribs broke bone. A bat to his jaw broke teeth and split his lips so wide he tasted blood pouring into his mouth. They broke his left hand with a brick, 1 finger at a time, small bones snapping like dry sticks, while Tommy screamed into the dark and no one came. When they finished, Tommy lay in trash and dirt with a face so swollen no one would know him and fingers bent in ways that made strong men look away. 1 man leaned close enough for Tommy to smell whiskey on his breath. "Red says Harlem does not tell us what to do. Red says next time we break your legs and leave you in the river." Word reached Bumpy in an hour. He stood in the same back room looking at pictures someone took of Tommy in the hospital, bones set, wounds stitched, doctors saying the fingers on his left hand would never work right again. Marcus stood beside him waiting for orders, knowing what came next. "We hit back," Marcus said, "hard enough they remember, not hard enough to start full war." Bumpy put down the pictures, controlled. "Even, we break the same number of bones they broke, we send them to the same hospital, we make our point without making it personal." 2 days later, the 4 men who beat Tommy woke up in a warehouse on the edge of Harlem, hands tied behind backs, mouths taped. Bumpy's men did not torture them. They did not cut throats or break backs or cause damage that would need more revenge. They just gave back exactly what Tommy got: broken ribs, broken fingers, jaws that would take weeks to heal. Then they dropped the 4 men on Red Malone's doorstep with a note: "Borders work both ways." Red Malone looked at his 4 broken men on his floor and felt something worse than pain. He felt shame. He felt his power questioned by a black gangster who dared hit back, match hurt with hurt, act like Harlem had the same right to protect itself that white areas always took. "This is not about land anymore," Red told his second-in-command Sullivan while staring at Bumpy's note. "This is about respect. This is about a black man thinking he can touch white men without paying for it. This is about teaching a lesson no one forgets." "What kind of lesson?" Red crushed the notes, "The permanent kind. We kill Bumpy Johnson, we make it public, we make it hurt, we make Harlem wake up and see what we did to their leader." Sullivan nodded slowly. "When?" "Soon, we plan it right, no guns, no quick death. We want him to suffer, we want witnesses, we want everyone in Harlem to see what we did to their king." Red lit a cigarette and watched smoke rise. "And when he is gone, when Harlem has no leader, we walk in and take everything." The choice was made. The clock started. 3 weeks to get ready, gather men, pick the place, make sure the killing would be remembered long after everyone who saw it was gone. War starts when one side thinks the other will not fight back. Red Malone thought Bumpy's careful answer meant weakness. He thought talking meant fear. He thought a black gangster who did not go to full war right away could be killed without big trouble. That thought would cost him everything. But he did not know it yet. He only knew that in 3 weeks Bumpy Johnson would stand on a rooftop 48 feet above 7th Avenue with 13 men there to teach Harlem what happens when you cross the wrong line. Sullivan's bat came down first, a hard swing aimed at Bumpy's ribs strong enough to break bone and hurt lungs. Two men came from the sides with whistling chains. A third pulled a switchblade not to kill yet but to cut, to open skin, to make blood come before the real pain. 13 men closing in with weapons and bad plans and full belief that Bumpy would soon be broken and screaming on this roof before they threw what was left over the edge. Bumpy's mind worked faster than the weapons. The math was simple and cruel. Fight and they break every bone before the fall. Beg and they do it slower, enjoying it, making it last because fear is more fun than kindness. Run and there is nowhere to go except into more fists and chains and the low wall. 48 feet to the pavement below, 4 stories. Enough height that most people who fall that far do not walk away, enough that skulls split like eggs on a floor. Spines break, organs burst inside, you choke on your own blood while people watch and cannot help. But 48 feet is not always death. Some people have lived from higher, workers who slip off buildings, window cleaners whose ropes break, people who jump and change their minds halfway down and land in ways that let them keep breathing. The chance is small, but it is there. A small hope better than the sure thing of staying on the roof where 13 men will beat you to nothing before gravity ends it. Bumpy chose in the half-second before the bat hit. He did not step back or block. He stepped forward into the swing, letting the bat hit his shoulder instead of ribs, using the force to turn toward the edge, the only path with any chance. His hands hit the low wall. His legs pushed. He jumped over before Red could understand, before the 13 men could change their attack, before anyone could grab him and pull him back to certain death. 1.7 seconds of falling. Gravity took over, pulling him down at 32 feet per second squared. Wind rushed past his ears. The pavement came up fast, turning concrete into a hard wall that would either break him or not, depending on how he hit and if luck was on his side. Bumpy turned in the air, fighting gravity, trying to control what could not be controlled, aiming for the one way that might let him live. Not feet first, legs would break and bone pieces would cut arteries and he would bleed out fast. Not head first, that is just suicide slower. Somewhere between shoulder and hip, taking the hit, rolling if he could, spreading the force so no one spot took all of it and broke forever. The hit felt like a concrete truck full of hate. His left shoulder took most of it. Bone took force that should have killed him, should have sent pieces into lungs and heart, should have ended it all right there on 7th Avenue. Things broke, many things. Left side ribs snapped like dry wood. His hip screamed as the joint crushed in ways it was not built for. His head hit hard enough that bright lights flashed behind his eyes and the world turned gray. Not out cold, but close. Close enough that pain felt far away, like it belonged to someone else lying broken on cold concrete while 13 men stared down from 48 feet up, trying to understand why gravity failed. Bumpy's eyes cleared, his lungs pulled in air that tasted like blood and pain. Every part of him screamed that bones were broken, organs hurt, moving would make it worse. But he could move, fingers wiggled, toes answered his brain, a brain that should not work after that fall. No broken skull, no cut spine, no inside bleeding that would kill him soon. Just pain, huge, endless pain that makes men pass out or throw up or beg to die. Above, Red Malone leaned over the wall, face clear in moonlight, looking half happy and half confused. He expected a dead body, brains and bones scattered, the kind of sight that makes people sick. Instead, he saw Bumpy Johnson on 7th Avenue, eyes open, chest moving with shallow breaths. The fall had not finished the job. "He is still breathing," someone said from the roof. "Not for long," Red answered. "Get down there and finish him." Bumpy heard boots on stairs, voices yelling, men running down to street level to finish what gravity did not. He tried to stand, left leg said no, left arm hung useless. Pain shot from shoulder, ribs, hip in waves that made clear thought hard and moving almost impossible. Hands grabbed him from behind, not West Side boys. Harlem hands. Black hands from people who saw the fall, who saw a man drop 4 stories and live, who knew this was their leader broken on their street. If he died here, the whole neighborhood died too. "We got you, Bumpy." The voice belonged to someone he knew but could not name through pain. "We got you." They pulled him into an alley between buildings, into shadows streetlights could not reach, into darkness where bodies vanish and questions never get answered. Someone pressed cloth on his head where concrete had cut his scalp. Someone tried to straighten his leg, sending new pain through his hip that made him bite hard enough to taste more blood. "We need a hospital," a woman's voice said. "No hospital." Bumpy pushed the words out through clenched teeth. "Hospital means police report. Police report means Red knows I lived. Red knows I lived means he comes back to finish. You are bleeding bad, shoulder broken, ribs cracked, you need a real doctor. Get Freddy, he fixed broken bones in the war, he can fix these." Bumpy's sight went blurry, cleared, went blurry again. No hospital, no police, no record that tells Red Malone I am still alive. Someone ran for Freddy. Someone brought blankets that smelled of mold and old smoke. They put Bumpy on cardboard in an alley where rats watched from shadows and garbage smell mixed with blood in his mouth. Above, voices from the roof, boots on stairs, West Side boys coming down to make sure the kill was done, to finish what bats and chains started. But the alley was dark and Harlem knew how to hide its own. By the time Red's men hit the street, the spot where Bumpy landed had only dark stains that could be anything. The body was gone. Witnesses said they saw nothing. The fall happened, but the ending was unknown, a question that would bother Red Malone for the next 90 minutes until question turned to fear and fear turned to his own end. Freddy came 15 minutes later with a bag of pain medicine, bandages, and skills learned fixing soldiers under gunfire in places where screams brought more bombs. He looked at the shoulder, ribs pushing wrong against skin, hip that would not hold weight, and shook his head. "This will hurt worse than the fall." "Do it." Bumpy's jaw stayed tight. "No pain medicine, I need to stay awake, I need to think." Freddy stood over the shoulder, thinking will not help what comes next. He pulled. The shoulder went back in place with a sound like wet wood snapping. Bumpy's scream filled the alley and died against brick walls that soaked up sound like they soaked up everything else in Harlem. Freddy taped ribs tight enough to keep lungs safe but loose enough to let breathing happen. He felt the hip bones, checking for breaks that needed real surgery or meant walking would never be the same. "You can walk," Freddy said at last. "Not far, not fast, but you can move." "How long until I can run?" "Weeks, maybe months." "Why?" "Because I have 90 minutes to turn a fall into a weapon." Bumpy made himself sit up, every move a fight with pain that did not want to lose. "Red thinks I am dead or dying. That gives me one chance to hit back before he knows he is wrong. Sometimes the only way to live is to take the fall. To choose 48 feet of air over sure torture on a roof with 13 men waiting to teach fear. To bet everything on physics and luck and the small chance you land in a way that lets you breathe long enough to turn living into a plan, and the plan into the kind of answer that changes every rule the West Side boys thought they knew. Marcus came to the alley 20 minutes after the fall with 6 men carrying guns and loyalty the same way. He looked at Bumpy sitting against the wall, shoulder taped, ribs bound tight, face white from pain and blood loss, jaw tight enough to break teeth, and said, "They told me you were dead." "They were wrong." Bumpy made himself stand. Left leg hardly held weight, right arm did all the work while left hung dead. "How long until Red knows I lived?" "An hour, maybe 2 if we are lucky." Marcus helped hold him steady. "What do you need?" "Everyone, every man who can hold a gun and take orders. 90 minutes to plan and do it before the West Side boys know their mistake and come finish me." The word spread through Harlem faster than fire in dry grass. Bumpy Johnson lived through a 4-story fall. Bumpy Johnson is alive and planning. Bumpy Johnson needs men. No one asked questions. No one doubted. They just came from apartments, basements, places where Harlem keeps its fighters when peace does not need them. 30 men gathered in the basement of the barber shop on Lenox Avenue in 40 minutes. Numbers: bank guards who broke fingers when money was short. Dock workers who moved cargo and knew how to sink bodies in the Hudson. Soldiers back from Korea who brought war skills home to streets that used them. Men who owed Bumpy money, favors, or their lives and knew tonight they paid. Bumpy stood at the front with Freddy ready to give pain medicine if it got too much. But Bumpy said no. Pain kept him sharp. Pain reminded him what Red tried on that roof. Pain was fuel. "Red Malone thinks I am dead," Bumpy said. His voice carried even though breathing hurt with taped ribs squeezing lungs. "He thinks Harlem lost its leader. He thinks tomorrow his men will walk into our land and take it all because no one is left to stop them. Marcus spread a map on the table. 5 places marked in red. Sullivan's Tavern on 48th Street where West Side boys met after collecting money. Dems's Gym on 10th Avenue where they trained new men and kept guns. Lucky 7's Social Club on 52nd Street where Red counted cash and planned. Murphy's Garage near the docks where they kept cars and held people who needed talking to. Alice's Bar on 46th Street where leaders drank and planned. 5 places, Bumpy said, 5 teams, all hit at the same time, no warning, no one left to tell Red. We do not just kill soldiers, we destroy everything they built. When the sun comes up, the West Side boys are gone as a group. That is a lot of killing in 90 minutes, one soldier said. It is removal, not revenge. Bumpy's jaw fought pain trying to pull him under. Revenge is feeling, revenge makes mistakes. This is plan, this is ending a danger forever so it never returns. He split the men into 5 teams. Each got a place, a time, and clear orders about what to do and when. First team hits Sullivan's Tavern at exactly 10:45 at night. Second team hits Dems's Gym 1 minute later. Third team goes into Lucky 7 at 10:46. Fourth team enters Murphy's Garage at 10:47. Fifth team walks into Alice's Bar at 10:48. 5 minutes from first shot to last. 5 places, 5 teams moving together so no one can warn or help before the next hit. Watch is set the same, Marcus said, checking his watch against Bumpy's. We move in 70 minutes. Freddie pulled Bumpy aside while teams got ready. You should be in bed. Shoulder needs rest. Ribs need healing. Planning big killings is not what doctors say after a 4-story fall. I will rest when Red Malone stops breathing. Bumpy took pain medicine this time, just enough to take the sharp edge off, not enough to slow his mind. How long until my body gives out? It already started. You run on anger and body chemicals. When they stop, you fall. Then we finish before they stop. Bumpy went back to the map, to the 5 red marks that meant life or death for Harlem. Red made one mistake tonight. He thought the fall would kill me. That mistake gives us one chance to hit before he fixes it. Teams got guns, revolvers, shotguns, bats for quiet, close work. They set watches to the second. They learned paths, backup plans, what to do if police came early. They knew tonight was not about fair fight or letting anyone give up. Tonight was about wiping out the West Side boys so completely that morning would bring no memory of them. 60 minutes, Marcus said. Bumpy sat in a chair someone brought because his body screamed against standing. Around him, 30 men got ready for planned killing big enough to make papers scream about gang war and bring government eyes no one wanted. But that was tomorrow. Tonight was making sure Harlem had a tomorrow. That the lesson Red tried to teach got turned around, made bigger, made into a warning that would last longer than anyone there. Revenge is feeling, revenge makes you careless. Revenge gets you killed because you act mad instead of smart. But removal is different. Removal is cold math. Removal is taking pieces off a game board until the other side has nothing left, no moves except give up or die. Men like Red Malone do not give up. 30 minutes, Marcus said. The wait went on, men checked guns, paths checked one last time, questions answered, worries calmed. The machine Bumpy built over years in Harlem got ready to work exact, no pity, toward one clear goal that needed no excuse beyond staying alive. Red Malone sat at his usual table in Sullivan's Tavern, drinking to what he thought was the end of Bumpy Johnson and the start of West Side control of Harlem. Whiskey poured, his men laughed about the sound a body makes hitting pavement from 48 feet. Someone acted out Bumpy's arms waving in the fall. The room laughed loud until the front door opened and 6 Harlem men walked in with shotguns already up. Red tried to stand. The first shot hit his chest before his feet were straight, throwing him back into the table. Glasses broke. His body fell across splintered wood. No talk, no warning, no chance to beg. Just shotgun roar in a closed room and the wet sound of shot tearing flesh and bone. Sullivan reached for his gun. The second shot took his arm off at the elbow in a spray of blood and bone. He opened his mouth to scream. The third shot ended that chance, jaw gone, throat open. He fell and twitched twice and stopped. 12 men in the tavern when shooting started. 0 breathing when it ended. 90 seconds from door open to done, no one left to warn other places. 1 minute later at Dems's gym, Team 2 came in with gasoline and bottles with rags in the necks. 8 West Side boys were teaching new men how to hit knees with bats. Fire bottles flew through windows, glass broke, gas spread, fire caught mats, equipment, wood floors. Doors and windows blocked, men tried to get out. Shotguns waited, bodies fell back into fire that ate everything, building burned fast, fire trucks came too late. At Lucky 7 Social Club Team 3 went in through the basement where Red kept money, records, and 3 bookkeepers who counted every dollar. 1 door, no windows, Team locked it from inside. Guns ended the work in that closed space where noise stayed trapped. Bookkeepers died at desks, records burned after gas-soaked paper. Murphy's garage had 6 cars and 4 men who made people vanish in the river with concrete weights. Team 4 came through big doors, guns ready, workers died beside cars, fire took vehicles, proof in trunks, bodies. Alice's bar was where leaders met, talked growing into Harlem over good drinks. Team 5 walked in at 10:48 while 9 men argued at a table about splitting land they thought was theirs. Now Bumpy was dead. Door locked behind them, windows blocked. 9 men understood what was happening but had no time to stop it. Guns fired, men died in chairs or running for cover that was not there or reaching for guns too far. When smoke cleared and bodies counted across 5 places, the numbers told a story papers would try weeks to figure out. 37 men dead, 49 more hurt, bad enough for hospitals, operations, lies police would never fully believe. 0 hurt or caught on Bumpy's side, not one. The West Side boys tried to kill Bumpy Johnson on a rooftop 48 feet above 7th Avenue. Now the West Side boys were gone as a group. Red Malone gone, leaders gone, buildings burning, empire built on fear and strength gone in 5 minutes because no one lived to call for help. A group falls fastest when every phone that could ring stays silent, every place that could send help is already burning or dead. Red Malone thought white men could take anything from black neighborhoods. That thought died tonight with everyone who believed it, wiped out by a man who fell 48 feet, lived long enough to teach a lesson Harlem would remember and Hell's Kitchen would never forget. Papers called it the Hell's Kitchen Massacre, police called it gang war, the big Italian bosses called it a problem that fixed itself. By sunrise October 5, 1952, the West Side boys were no longer a group. Red Malone's name vanished from police files and street talk. Taverns where his men met stood empty or changed owners. Docks where he took protection, money found new collectors who knew some land was not for sale. Harlem closed its borders after that night, not with walls but with the quiet understanding that comes from seeing 37 men die in 5 minutes for crossing the wrong line. Numbers, banks kept running, runners collected, life went on the same as before. Red Malone thought black gangsters would not hit back with the same cruelty white gangsters used. Frank Costello heard about the killings in hours. He sat in his office downtown reading police reports of planned hits across 5 places with army-like timing and no witnesses left to talk. He knew right away what it meant. Bumpy Johnson lived through a 4-story fall and turned living into a lesson that would echo in New York's crime world for years. 3 days later, Costello sent word through quiet channels, the big bosses accept Harlem belongs to Harlem. Italian families will not take land Bumpy Johnson controls. The 1935 deal still stands. Borders stayed set. Anyone who thought different could look at what happened to Red Malone and his West Side boys and change their mind. The deal lasted through the 1950s and 1960s. Harlem ran alone while the 5 families ran the rest. Fights got settled by talking, not shooting. Borders stayed respected. The bosses learned some men are harder to kill than gravity says, and trying can cause problems that spread faster than fixes. When Bumpy Johnson died in 1968, not from a fall or bullet, but the normal way all men go, Carlo Gambino sent a flower wreath to the funeral that cost more than most Harlem families made in half a year. The card said nothing about respect or liking or old fights, it just said what everyone knew. Bumpy Johnson built something that lasted, guarded something important, protected lines that stayed long after the men who tried to cross them were forgotten. Red Malone's grave had no marker, no flowers, no card, no sign he ever lived, except dusty police files no one opened. The West Side Boys became a quiet warning story. What happens when you think patience is weakness, when you think the fall will finish what you started, when you forget some men turn 48 feet of air into a weapon instead of a grave? The lesson was not about hurting people. Hurting is easy. Anyone with a gun or bat or ready to push someone off a roof can hurt. The lesson was about planning, about holding pain long enough to pick the right moment, about knowing real power comes not from the loudest threat but from the quiet sure knowledge that some lines are worth protecting with your life. Real power does not need yelling. It does not need showing how strong you are or how many men you have or how much land you claim. Real power is being able to take a 4-story fall, live through hurt that should kill, turn that living into 90 minutes of perfect removal that wipes out enemies so completely their groups fall apart before sunrise. Real power is making people know some lines must never be crossed, not because you will fight back mad, but because you will answer with math, with exact moves, with cold removal that leaves no second chance, no talking it out, nothing but the clear truth that crossing those lines means the end. Bumpy Johnson stood on a rooftop October 4, 1952, with 13 men sure they could push him off and win. He fell 48 feet and lived. He planned 90 minutes and hit in 5. He wiped out a whole group before the sun rose on a new day where Harlem belonged to Harlem, and everyone who needed to know understood exactly why that would never change. The rooftop still stands. The pavement where he landed has been fixed many times. But the lesson stays carved into how New York's crime world works when respect meets planning, and borders become rules kept not by police, but by men who know some land is worth guarding with everything, including choosing to fall and being smart enough to turn that fall into something enemies do not live through. This story is shared to teach history, and for thinking about it, not to encourage violence or breaking the law. Thank you for watching to the end. These stories take weeks of research and writing to make. If this story touched you, if you see the lesson Bumpy Johnson was teaching about responsibility and teaching instead of violence, press that subscribe button. Help us reach 1 million subscribers so we can keep sharing stories that matter. Stories about power used wisely. Stories about consequences faced fairly. Stories about men who chose to change systems instead of just hurting enemies. Next video comes soon. Until then, remember, real power is not what you can destroy, it is what you choose to protect.